Welcome to SAAS Mastery Module 6. Here we're going to talk about some tips and tricks during the development phase of the work, so when your application is actually getting built. We have two lessons in this module, so a short module, we'll be adding some additional tips over time, so make sure you check back for any additional lectures that we have. First, we're going to talk through project management, and then we'll just talk through some general tips while your application is being coded. So for project management, just remember when we talked about project management last, we talked about that diagram we had with the balance of time, budget, and scope. As you're going through the project, you are going to get hit with surprises. Things happen. It's like if you watch any of those home renovation shows, and there's always a problem. There's always a time when something's going to take longer than planned, or it might cost more than what was originally discussed, or there are new things that are added on the to-do list of the people that are doing whether it's demo or construction work. So just keep in mind that these things are going to happen, and you'll want to think through, what are the alternatives. So if you run into an issue and, it's going to take longer to do than what you thought, taking more time is also going to require extra budget, especially if your team is being paid hourly, or daily. It's going to, if it takes more time, it's going to cost you more money. So be prepared for things like that. Your budget should never be your absolute budget that you can't possibly increase, just because things are always going to happen. If you do get to the point where you don't have the budget to, pay for some of the things that are happening, that's where, we can look to change scope and, maybe remove certain pieces of functionality from the application, which could save, time in terms of now that doesn't have to be developed, and then that will reduce the budget that way. So, each of these three items here can be manipulated if you have the budget and you're willing to spend the extra time, getting everything in there, then, that's great. Just try to control as much as you possibly can. So when it comes to scope, typically you'll start to see the application and you'll get excited and you'll find other use cases for it and say, oh, how, can we do this or can we do that? And in that case, your scope will increase, which will also increase the time and the budget. So just try to keep, scope as tight as possible. If you do come up with other ideas along the way, just put it on a list, for an enhancement list, for a phase 1 item or a phase 2 item, etc. So that way you can continue to march towards your original plan over here. In terms of project management, you want to make sure that you're getting regular updates on the status of the application. Now, how often you're going to get it, whether it's daily, whether it's weekly, etc., is going to depend on the project length. If you have a 3-week project, getting updates once a week really isn't going to help you, because by the time you realize that your development's starting to slip, you're already a third or 2/3 of the way through the project, and there really isn't anything, or isn't much, I should say, that you can do at that point. Versus if you're getting daily updates and you realize after the 3rd day that things are starting to slip, you can try to tweak other things in order to complete the project on time. You really shouldn't look for updates less frequently than weekly. So if somebody says, hey, we'll update you once a month, there's no, even if it's a 5-year project, that's not going to be acceptable. You should look for either, daily updates or weekly updates. But just keep in mind that, there's a difference between updates and like status meetings, where maybe all the developers get on a call with you to talk through their individual pieces. Try to keep those types of meetings to a minimum, because I see time and time again, I'm on a project, or there are other, projects going on where, they request meetings every single day for an hour, or longer working sessions here and there, getting the whole team involved. And, if the team is in a meeting, they are not working. So if you're going to have hour-long meetings every single day, then your project plan, and your timeline need to account for the fact that you're not getting 8 hours of work in a day, you're getting 7 hours of work in a day. So if you budgeted something to take, one day, that's going to take, a day and a quarter or a day and a half to do, just because the team can only work on it for 7 hours instead of 8 hours in a day. Again, as I said before, just beware of scope creep. It happens a lot, but just try to keep it to a minimum and only to things that are going to be core functionality. You can always enhance. I've done plenty of projects where we built an MVP and then, enhanced it immediately after. So you want to make sure that you're minimizing scope creep. Now, that being said, there are times when, if you are introducing something that changes the entire foundation of the application and isn't just like an add-on, it's a, core change to the application, where you may want to consider, just biting the bullet and spending the extra time and money to get it implemented in your, original timeline, or in your original phase, I should say, because, if you go and you rework it later, it may be more expensive or more time consuming to go and, redo everything. You got to retest everything, versus, incremental types of changes where, they're add-ons and you can just, add it at any time. We're going to go through an example of a project plan, and I'll show you what that looks like in Microsoft Project, but just some key items to keep in mind, especially like if you're managing the project yourself, or, maybe you just want to check to make sure that the person that's managing the project knows what they're doing. You want to make sure that the tasks in your project plan match the number of resources that you have. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have 5 tasks that are all slotted to take one day, and they're all set to run in parallel, but you only have 3 resources. Well, guess what? Those 5 tasks aren't getting done in one day. Those 5 tasks are going to take closer to 2 days, to complete. So when you're mapping this out, you look at, oh, well, my end date falls within the range that it's supposed to be at, but your project wasn't scheduled right. Well, it's not going to finish in that time. It's going to take longer. Again, if you're paying the resources hourly, then, it's going to cost that much more as well. So just make sure that, whatever the plan is, that you're matching the concurrent tasks to the number of people that you have. It seems very simple when I say it, but you'd be surprised how many times this comes up. Now, your project plan should be updated regularly during build. It would be great at the end of the day to have all the developers just email the project manager with, hey, here's what was accomplished today. Here's where we're at. This slipped, but I think we're okay because this other thing seems easier than what we originally thought, and we can make up that time. Just something very quick, not anything that is going to take too much time. Because again, the more time that your team spends on operational tasks like updating their status, sitting on meetings, the less time that they're working. So, there's some projects I've been on where they say, hey, look, we want to do this in an agile fashion, rapid updates, and so we're going to do a status meeting at the beginning of every day, a status meeting at the end of every day, so we know exactly where we are. That's all great, but when you spend a half hour in the morning on a status update and a half hour in the afternoon on a status update, and you're sending updates to your project manager, then that's just that much less time that you have to work on the task. So what I'm going to do now is pull up a project plan. This is something that I just made up, a short while ago, and this has all the different phases. We have our requirements, our design, build, test, and deploy. Off to the right, we have a Gantt chart that's graded. So this is really helpful because it can show you, when all the tasks are going to be completed and how they fit into the overall timeline. We can, map out how long each task that, we think is going to take. And then, from there, we can see, well, how long is this project going to go on for? When is the expected end? Mapped out a bunch of dependencies over here, but as I mentioned in the slides, that we want to make sure that I don't have any resource names filled in over here. But if I had 2 people on the project and we see that we have a bunch of tasks here that are starting at the same time, that if we have 2 resources and we have 4 sets of tasks that are, or 5 sets of tasks, or whatever, starting at the same exact time, we're not going to be completed on this timeline. So we want to make sure we update our dependencies, we want to update our resources, and we want to check and match that against what we actually have on the project. We'll make this this file available for you. If you want to use it. Just note that Microsoft Project doesn't come with the Microsoft Office suite. It is expensive. It's several $100s to purchase, but for me, that the expense has been well worth it for the number of times that I've used it.